the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Oppenheimer is a historical drama based on the book American Prometheus about the man himself, J. Robert Oppenheimer, who was a renowned physicist known as the father of the atomic bomb, but was also influential in other areas, like discovering the collapse of a neutron star could lead to a black hole. There's a quote by National Security Advisor McGeorge Bundy that says, "Quite aside from Oppenheimer's extraordinary rise and fall in prestige and power, his character has fully tragic dimensions in its combination of charm and arrogance, intelligence and blindness, awareness and insensitivity, and perhaps above all, daring and fatalism. This is the best description I've seen for Oppenheimer's character." Since this is a historical drama, the spoilers are already out there because all of this happened. So if you really care about spoilers, I recommend putting my video in your watch later and watching it after the movie. This is more so my opinion on things, but I think it's worth listening to. Spoilers ahead. This movie does a great job of showing how everyone has a dark side to them. Not a single person in this movie is flawless. It doesn't shy away from the history of these people. Robert, with his love affairs and ego. Strauss, with his deception and resentment of Oppenheimer. Kitty, with her drunkenness and questionable parenting. Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. as Strauss, Matt Damon as Leslie Groves, and Emily Blunt as Kitty Oppenheimer were standouts for me in the movie. The whole cast did a great job. Side characters like his communist love interest Gene Tatlock, played by Florence Pugh, and rival scientist and eventual father of the hydrogen bomb, Edward Teller, played by Benny Safdie, were great side characters in the movie that brought conflict to Robert. The movie was constructed centrally around Oppenheimer's court interrogation, intersecting parts of his life and the build-up to the Trinity test. It was also following along Louis Strauss, a budding politician hoping to be appointed to the presidential cabinet. There are times in this movie where some scenes are in color and other scenes are in black and white. Christopher Nolan revealed in an interview that the color scenes are subjective. They are his interpretation of how things happened. The black and white scenes are fact. They have audio or video evidence of those scenes. 2 words are listed in the beginning. Number 1 is fusion, and number 2 is fission, both used to create nuclear devices. Oppenheimer is on the screen when it says fusion, and Strauss is on the screen when it says fission, setting up our main 2 characters that are going to be revolving around the movie. Protagonist and antagonist, if you will. Even though in this movie no one's really good or bad, everybody sucks, like in real life. I enjoyed the Einstein scenes, and I thought Tom Conti, the actor playing him, did a good job.
Walking through Princeton, it's really very funny because people, they're walking around and they go.
Apparently, there was a fear that a nuclear device would ignite the atmosphere and destroy the world.
There's a chance when we push that button, we destroy the world. Chances are near zero.
Einstein and Oppenheimer talk about this issue. Later, they discover the probability is near zero. They both also talk about their disdain for mathematics, and as a person who also dislikes mathematics, I appreciate that quote very much so. Also, the scene at the dinner table in 1949 where Louis Strauss reveals the Soviets tested their first atomic bomb, and how suspiciously similar it was to the Manhattan Project's device that Robert designed. This was one of my favorite scenes as well. They argue also over the validity and use of building an H-bomb. Another scene I enjoyed, especially for Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, was where Strauss reveals his plan to screw over Oppenheimer to the Senate aide. Or really, the Senate aide figured it out himself by putting things together. Strauss has resentment for Robert because he embarrassed him in a hearing involving radioactive isotopes, as well as denying the use and need for an H-bomb. He crafted a kangaroo court to take away Oppenheimer's clearance. Strauss was shunned by the scientific community, and a scientist named David Hill testified at his appointment hearing that he maliciously set up Oppenheimer. This testimony caused 3 senators to take away their vote for Strauss. In doing so, he was never appointed. There were some good fun lines I enjoyed in this movie, and I may be paraphrasing some of them, but one was, "Are you ready to lift the stone and reveal the snake?" Niels Bohr says to Oppenheimer about the bomb being finally revealed to the world, as well as, "It's not can you read the sheet music, but can you hear the music?" Another one I liked is when Strauss is talking to the Senate aide after the Senate aide reveals that Strauss has set up this whole thing to take down Oppenheimer. Strauss tells him, "Amateurs seek the sun and get eaten. Power stays in the shadows." I do want to get into some of the negatives of the film. A gripe I have on this film, and it seems like I've had a gripe with every film I've reviewed so far, is the runtime. I needed a break at a few points in this movie. I think it really could have used an intermission of some sort. There were pacing issues in the first and third act. Some scenes just dragged on. There was a lot of exposition dumping as well, and tell, don't show instead of show, don't tell. The visuals in this movie are nothing short of spectacular. Nolan said all the effects in the movie are practical, and they feel grounded in reality. Robert sees vibrations of energy that aren't normally seen in our world. It lets you into the mind of this tortured genius and that he operates differently than the average person. When Robert is really under distress, there comes a crazy distortion around him, like the matter around him is delving into chaos. And sometimes you can hear what I'm calling the March of Destruction.
They won't fear it until they understand it. And they won't understand it.
The audio is from the hall celebration of the successful detonation. People stomping on the bleacher seats like it's a sports game. I'll get back to that scene a little later. First, I have to talk about the Trinity test scene. Batter my heart, 3-person God. The apparent origin of the Trinity name based on the John Donne poem. The build-up to the detonation of the device was tense and great. You can hear the Geiger ticking for a few minutes with the score. And finally, when they let off the device at 5:30 a.m., a bright light followed by fire and flame. A mushroom cloud rising. It was silence in the scene and theater. Awe and terror. Which leads to the bleacher scene I referenced earlier. The nukes have been dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Oppenheimer advised on how to drop them and where, but now he has regret. Everyone cheering and celebrating goes to silence, but they are still physically celebrating. Physics around him distorts. A single woman screams. A lady's skin peels away. He steps on a husk of a black corpse. Bright light encapsulates the room. Then the boom! People are seen crying and fearing for their lives among the celebration. He exits to see someone puking from radiation sickness. All in his head. But he sees what his work has created. I enjoyed the film score as well. It was intense and made scenes of dialogue dramatic. The sound design was good too. My favorite track is Ground Zero. It's so tense and you can hear the Geiger counter mixed in with the track as well. Can You Hear the Music is great too. Also, between loading up Little Boy and Fat Man, the chains holding the boxes locked clanked their way from Los Alamos. And even though they aren't seen, you can hear the clanking chains faintly, all the way till Truman announces the bomb being dropped on Hiroshima a few minutes later. I enjoyed this subtle touch, and there's plenty more in the sound design and soundtrack. The climax of the film is Oppenheimer getting his clearance not renewed. Einstein even told him, and I'm paraphrasing, "They will love you when you build the bomb for them, hate you for a little while, then love you again in the twilight of your life." The last scene of the movie is Robert speaking to Einstein at a pond at Princeton. Little raindrops are causing ripples in the water, just like the very first shot we see in the movie. He talks about how he feels about the bomb. He mentions how earlier in the movie they were afraid of setting off a nuclear chain reaction to the atmosphere that would destroy the world. He says, "I believe we did." The ripples in the water turn to nukes dropping and sending the same ripple waves as the water. The movie ends with a haunting image of Earth being engulfed in nuclear fire. I got to experience Oppenheimer in IMAX Digital as well as IMAX 70mm. IMAX 70mm was really cool, and I could tell the difference between that and the digital right off the bat. The screen I was watching the 70mm on was a lot bigger too than the digital screen. So for the Trinity test, watching the bomb explosion and mushroom clouds slowly guide up the big screen was really cool. I think if you have the opportunity to see it in IMAX 70mm, I would recommend it that way first and foremost. But if you don't have access and can only see it in digital IMAX, it's still a great way to watch this movie. Overall, I enjoyed this movie. I'm a sucker for historical dramas, and movies where actors can just act the shit out of scenes and chew on scenery. This movie did that for me. And it also reignited interest I have in nuclear physics. This is a subject that is beautiful and terrifying to me at the same time. I do not think this movie is for everybody though, because it is 3 hours long and heavy on dialogue. If you wanted to come to this movie to see nukes fly and war scenes, you will be extremely disappointed. But if you come for a fascinating lesson on a pivotal person in history, whether you like him or not, I think you will enjoy this movie. I give Oppenheimer an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching my video. Thank you to all my subscribers. If you liked my video, please leave a like, comment down below, it does help with the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe. If you didn't like my video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time here in the Junkyard.